Okay, today's lesson, you guys are going to get to help me tell the story a little bit. But before we get that far, we did our verse already. I'm going to have you, how are we doing on time? I want to leave enough time for Valentine's. So let's dig into the story. So today you guys are going to help me tell it, okay? So you'll have to do some actions. This takes like 3 whole chapters in the Bible. We're not going to read 3 whole chapters. So I'm going to kind of tell the story, and you guys help me with doing some actions. My mask just broke. That's not good. Okay, so I'm going to do some reading. We're going to read some Bible verses, and you guys are going to be busy here too. So let's get started. Maybe. Okay, we already practiced our verse before we got to the screen. Next one. Okay, Joseph forgives his brothers. Okay, get your hands ready. Markers down. You guys are going to get to tell the story. There once was a man in the Bible named Joseph. You can pretend you're Joseph today, so point to yourself. He had lots of ups and lots of downs in his life. Sometimes everything was great, and he felt like his life was going up, 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 up. You can reach as high as you can. You can stand if you want to, you don't have to. Okay? Sometimes he felt great, right? Other times, hard things happened, and he felt like his life was going down, 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 down. But through it all, Joseph knew that God is good.
No matter what.
Perfect. Way back when, Joseph's brothers had thrown him into a well and then sold him, so he had to be a servant in Egypt. He no longer had the freedom to do what he wanted. Not good. They told their father that Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. Really not good. Today's story takes place many, many, many years later. Joseph is now the ruler of Egypt. Well, almost the ruler. He's right under Pharaoh. And that's really good news. In fact, no one in Egypt was more powerful than him except for Pharaoh, and that's really, really good. Meanwhile, though, there was a famine. What is a famine? What's a famine?
Like, I don't know. Kind of like a drought, but instead of with the land, it's with food.
Yeah, so basically, it didn't rain for so long that they couldn't grow any food. So it's kind of like the grocery store selling out of food, except it had to do with the weather. They couldn't grow anything. So they couldn't have any food in their house because they couldn't get any food out of the ground. That's correct. So there was a famine. Is that good news or bad news?
Bad news.
Bad news. Does a famine just affect some people or everybody? Everybody. Yep. It's not like sometimes when you don't have money to buy food, that affects just a couple families. But when there's a famine and there's no food for anybody, that's definitely bad news. Okay. If there's a famine and there's not much food, how are you feeling? Bad and hungry. So hungry. Put your hands on your belly. Show me how hungry you are. We usually whine when we're hungry, don't we? Yeah. Mom, I'm so hungry. My tummy hurts, right? Okay, that's how everybody in Egypt felt. Okay, we're going to read from Genesis 42. Oh, there's our bros and Joes. You guys remember we told the story that way? We had the 2 sides of the story with our bros and Joes. But today, we're going to read this. When Jacob heard that grain was available in Egypt, because his brothers were still at home, remember? He said to all those boys who were left, the bros, "Why are you standing around looking at one another? I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy enough grain to keep us alive, otherwise we will die." Is that good news or bad news? Bad news that they're going to die, but good news that Egypt has grain. Why does Egypt have grain and nobody else? Do you remember?
Because Joseph told the king first 7 years to collect a lot of grain and save it.
That's right. Because God helped Joseph and blessed him and helped him interpret the dreams, right? So Pharaoh had a dream and he had no idea what all those cows and the heads of wheat, what all that stuff meant. But Joseph did because God told him. He said, let's get prepared because there's not going to be food for a long time. So do you think God was using Joseph to help his family? Yeah. Did Joseph know that God was going to use him to help his family? No. So the next part of the story is kind of a surprise. Since Joseph was in charge of selling the grain, the brothers had to meet with him. What do you think is going to happen? Yeah, let's see what happens though. When Joseph finally would Joseph finally choose to get even with his brothers?
No.
Raise your hand if you have brothers and sisters at your house.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Raise your hand if your brother or sister has ever done anything mean to you. Okay, all the same hands should still be up. Okay? Raise your hand if you've ever thought of getting back at your brother or sister when they've done something mean to you. Yeah. Do you think Joseph maybe spent some time when he was in jail scheming? What does it mean to scheme?
Like plot.
Plot, to make a plan. He probably spent some of that time when he was sitting in jail bored. How would he get even with his brothers? Let's see if that's what happens.
Not give away grain.
Not give away grain, right? Let's see what happens. Okay, Joseph recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. Why do you think that is? Don't you know what your brother and sister look like? Why do you think? Sarah, what do you
He's
think?
wearing different clothes.
Yeah, this picture is a really good example. Do the men, this is not a very big picture for you guys, but do the men on this side of the picture wear the same clothes as Joseph? No. He was now an Egyptian ruler, so he probably dressed like one. So he's probably pretty fancy. Maybe he did or didn't have a beard before, like when they sold him. So he looked different. He may have even had like Egyptian makeup on. That's what they do in the Joseph movie, right? They make him look different so they don't recognize him. And it's been a really, really, really long time. Do you think, have you ever not seen a friend for a really long time and maybe they cut their hair or they were wearing a mask when you saw them the next time and you didn't recognize them? Happens, right? Even to brothers. So they didn't recognize him. The brothers got into Joseph's throne room where they were distributing grain and they bowed low. You bow really low. How would you bow if you went before a king? Sometimes on your knees, right? Or sometimes you have to like in movies they curtsy if you're wearing a dress or they bow like this. Yep. They had to bow in front of their brother. What other times do we hear about bowing in Joseph's story? Who remembers? A long time ago. Somebody remember? Do you remember, Ethan, do you remember when they bowed? You remember that dream that Joseph had?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember that dream? What did he tell his brothers was going to
He
happen?
bowed down to 11 stars.
Yes, there were the stars and the moon, right? And they were going to bow down in front of Joseph. And then they had the things of grain, the things of wheat, and they bowed down in front of Joseph's. Did that dream just come true?
Yes.
Yes, it did. So cool. Okay, Joseph decided to mess with his brothers a little bit. So he didn't get even right away, but he decided to mess with them. You're all spies, he said. Okay, look like Joseph. If you were talking to your brothers and you're angry with them still, you're all spies. He accused them. They were, look at this picture. You can't tell, but they're sweating. They're drips of sweat because they're so nervous. The brothers started to whisper to each other. This is what they said. Oh, there's a picture. This is what they said. Clearly, we are being punished because of what we did to Joseph long ago. Remember, they don't know that it's him. We saw his anguish when he pleaded for his life, but we wouldn't listen. That's why we're in trouble now. Not good. The brothers said, no, we're not spies, we're not spies, we're not spies. Joseph said, yes, you are. I'm going to keep one of you here. You're going to jail. The rest of you take some grain and go back to your father. Bring me Benjamin, your youngest brother, to prove that you're telling the truth. The brothers were really, really nervous then. Okay, so one brother left, or one brother stayed, all the others left. Okay, what do you do? Say goodbye to everybody. You're leaving one brother in jail.
Bye-bye.
That's bad news, right?
It's the baby.
Okay, so they have to walk all the way back to their homeland. You can pretend to walk if you want, or you can stand up and walk. Do you think it's a short trip or a long trip?
Long.
It's a very, very, very long trip. So they're thinking about the brother they left all the way there. And they get there, guess what their dad says?
You can't lose another. I'm not gonna lose another son.
Exactly. He'd already lost Joseph. He doesn't want to lose another son. I can't let Benjamin go. Joseph is already dead, and I don't want to lose Benjamin too. Do you think his dad was maybe crying even?
Yes.
Yeah. So either his family was going to starve, or he was going to have to give away another son. That does not sound good. He's probably crying. The brothers pleaded with their father to let Benjamin come. How do you beg when you want something from your mom and dad? Please, Dad, we're so hungry. Please, Dad, let him come with us. Okay. So, okay. Finally, their father said, okay, so off they went back to Egypt. This was going to be a lot of traveling, so they have to walk all the way back. All of them walked. So actually, the guy that stayed in jail, he saved 2 trips to and from Egypt. That's good. But, okay, when they got back to Egypt, the one brother in prison was released, and Joseph gave all his brothers a really big feast. So now their tummies were full. Is that good news for them? Good news. Keep eating. They were eating for a really long time. They're eating. He gave his little brother Benjamin 5 times as much food as the rest. So he was eating with like both hands. It's a lot of food. His brothers brought more grain. His brothers packed up more grain and packed up to leave. Now, Joseph decided to mess with them a little more. Here's how. When his brothers were ready to leave, Joseph gave these instructions to his palace manager. Fill each of their sacks with as much grain as they can carry and put each man's money back into their bag. Then put my personal silver cup at the top of the youngest brother's sack, along with the money for his grain. So the manager did as Joseph instructed him. What do you think Joseph's doing? He's really trying to get him in trouble.
He's being nice to his youngest brother.
He is being nice to his youngest brother.
Because he's trying to save him.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The brothers hadn't gotten very far when the palace manager caught up with them and accused them of stealing Joseph's silver cup. No, they cried. We would never do that. Go ahead and search our bags. The manager searched their bags, and sure enough, where was the cup?
In the bag.
In Benjamin's bag, right? Because Joseph made the manager put it there, right? He snuck it in. So, they have to go back to Egypt again. They've been walking like back and forth from Canaan to Egypt, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Crazy. So, Joseph said that he was going to keep Benjamin in Egypt as punishment for them stealing this cup. He told the rest of the brothers to go home. Tell them, go home.
Go!
Go home! Go home! Go home! But they wouldn't go. They're going to say, no way. Argue with him. Joseph, we're not leaving. Can't keep our brother. They said, we can't go home without Benjamin. Please let one of us stay behind instead and let Benjamin go. If we show up without Benjamin, our father will surely die. Is that good news or bad news? Bad news. But I think God has a plan. Joseph couldn't take it any longer. He said, I'm Joseph.
I'm Joseph!
Do you think his brothers were surprised?
Yeah.
Okay, quick, pull down your mask, do your surprised face. Yeah, crazy surprised. Put your mask back. Okay, he said, I'm Joseph, your brother. You sold me into slavery many, many years ago. Now is the moment that Joseph could get revenge on his brothers. He could really punish them, couldn't he?
Yes.
What did Joseph have power to do?
Put them in jail.
What did Romans say? Anything. The only person that was in charge of Joseph was the Pharaoh. So Joseph really could do anything he wanted. Could he be really mean and evil?
Yes.
Yes. Could he do all those things he probably imagined doing when he was in jail?
Yes.
Yep, he had all the power to do that. But you know what? Joseph chose to forgive his brothers. Because Joseph knew that God is good.
No matter what.
He knew that God could help him to forgive. He hugged his brothers and forgave them. The brothers hurried back to their father. Do you think they're excited to do the trip now? Yeah, they're sprinting the whole way and carrying bags of grain. They ran back to tell their dad the good news that Joseph was alive. Then the whole family moved to Egypt to live near Joseph. Joseph gave them food and land and lots of good things. But the brothers were so afraid that Joseph would punish them someday. But here's what Joseph said. So there's still a lot more story. This is in Genesis 44. The next verse is in Genesis 50. Joseph gets a big story. He said, no, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children. So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. Would you be a little worried if someone forgave you for something really, really bad?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you always kind of wonder if you were going to get in trouble for that? Yeah. But that's not exactly how forgiveness works. Forgiveness is not forgetting, right? Because we can't forget things that people do to us. But forgiveness is just choosing to not punish the person for what they did. Just like the brothers. Joseph chose to not be mean. He chose to not forget what happened to him, but to not count it against his brothers. Isn't that cool? Okay, I'm going to have you in your cruise do a little bit of a project here.
Yeah.
You got markers still, right? Yes? Yep. First grade has all the markers, so if you need more markers, first grade's got them. Here's what we're going to do. In your classes, your cruise, your whatever, we're going to draw some faces and we're going to do some talking. I'm going to ask you about times that you have needed forgiveness and times that you have forgiven someone else. If you choose to share a story about some time that somebody else has done something mean to you, can you just not use names? Does that make sense? Because sometimes sharing those things can be hurtful to somebody else. So if you say, My sister Sarah, I really do have a sister Sarah. When we were little, she did this to me. That's your sister Sarah too? That's cool. But sometimes that can be hurtful, especially if they're in the room. So we're not gonna, if you want to share a story about a time that you were hurt, that someone did something mean to you, especially because some of you might go to school together, you can share those examples without being really specific. Does that make sense, kids? Does that kind of make sense? Because I don't want this to turn into like talking mean about other people, but I still want you to be able to talk about times that you forgive others and you have been forgiven. But first, you need place. You need faces, actually. Oh, where are my faces? My faces are up here. Okay, I need each person in your class to have a face.